Let's bring in our think tank. They're locked and loaded. We're talking about the death penalty tonight in Fort Myers, Florida. Former Special District Court judge, former prosecutor Michael Chinopoulos joins us back with us in studio. Criminal defense attorneys Ashley McMahan, Lawrence Zimmerman, and Eklund Mercy. Welcome to you all. Michael, I want to begin with you down in Florida because let's put up on the screen Florida death penalty cases. The state has to prove a couple of things. One, that beyond a reasonable doubt that at least one aggravating factor exists, and they must prove that the aggravating factors outweigh the mitigating circumstances. Michael, I just went through 4 cases out of Florida this year where the jury in every one of them found that the aggravating factors existed beyond a reasonable doubt. The aggravating factors outweighed the mitigating factors, yet in each case the jury came back with life. What's going on in Florida?
You know, Vinny, that's a good question. I think sometimes it's really hard when you're the one that has to put your name on the document that says execution warrant. And I think maybe when it comes down to it, people tend to be more humane and more forgiving. There's also some school of thought, at least here in South Florida, that, you know, giving somebody life imprisonment in some people's mind is more punishment than letting them off the hook, so to speak. And number 2, a lot of people here feel like, well, you know, it really is much more expensive to give them the death penalty. Let's not spend that money. I'm not advocating those arguments one way or the other, but I think that's a lot of what goes around here in South Florida. All right.
I've got 3 criminal defense attorneys in front of me tonight. I know where you guys stand on the death penalty. I mean, that's your job. Thank goodness you're there to do the job. But again, we don't have to agree. I want to put up on the map, up on the screen, a map of the United States, because the death penalty is not the law everywhere. The death penalty is the law in 29 states, but there's 21 states where there is no death penalty. As a matter of fact, I used to practice in New Jersey. We had the death penalty for quite some time. They never actually executed anyone, but they got rid of it. That was probably part of the reason. First, your thoughts in general about the death penalty.
Well, I think it's very difficult in today's day and age to get a unanimous verdict on the death penalty. I mean, if you have just simply one holdout, one person who's saying, look, in my ethical structure, you know, as a human being, in, you know, whatever religion I practice, or...
Well, wait a minute, but you're death qualified. You don't get on the jury unless you're death qualified.
Yeah, but you just say that you can vote on it. But when it comes to putting pen to paper, just like Michael said, and it comes to actually putting your name on that, that weighs on you a lot differently than I think just being qualified to sit for that case. I think it's just a totally different thing at the end of the day.
Lawrence, the death penalty.
Well,
when I say death penalty, what comes to your mind? What do you think about as a criminal defense attorney?
I think it is discriminatory by race. I think that it is immoral. I think that if you do polling, most of the American public now, I think almost 60% are anti-death penalty. We don't get it right. I mean, a lot of people have been freed from death row because of mistakes. You never even really know. And in my personal opinion, obviously, how is it that we should be allowed to execute other human beings? What gives us that ability? Put them in prison for life. They committed the crime, go to prison for life. It's simple. Life in prison is not a cakewalk for someone who murdered somebody. They're in solitary, they're locked down, they're not hanging out playing basketball every day. It's not fun. And let me tell you one more thing. Billy Moore killed somebody, spent 16 years in prison for a death penalty sentence, spoke to the victim's family, apologized to them. They advocated for him to be commuted to a life sentence, got out, and became an ordained minister and has redeemed himself. Some people who kill people, no matter how heinous, are redeemable. Isn't that something we're taught about redemption? I'm not saying everybody is redeemable, but there is redemption for some people.
Eklund, I put a map up there, and there are more states that have the death penalty than don't have the death penalty. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about the fact that, you know, a crime in one state could put you on death row, same crime in another state, no chance?
Well, I don't feel that I feel like the reason why we have a criminal justice system is for punishment purposes, deterrence, retribution, as well as rehabilitation. But also our system has to have some level of mercy. And we know that our system is not completely infallible. So with that being said, when you have the death penalty and when we have questions of facts, that's why we have jury trials, and we're not sure 100% either way. I feel that having something that you can't change, like the death penalty, it should not be in place.
All right, Michael, you did talk to us about Florida, but I want you to talk to us about your thoughts as someone who's been a special district court judge, someone who's been a prosecutor, your thoughts about the death penalty. Big picture.
Vinnie, I think it's like anything else. There has to be a check and balance, right? And one of the things that I'm not comfortable with is that we can give somebody the death penalty and then keep them alive, which is torturous in and of itself for 20 years, right? The law, according to Michael, would be we have an appellate court who does nothing but death penalties, and they constitute and reconstitute as necessary. It's simple. You got one appeal as of right, whether you want it or not. The court has 90 days to review it and say yes or no. And that's it. We got 90 days to execute you. So, it's the express lane. And I'm sorry, I understand there are some innocent people, but we also have to dispense justice. So we have to balance. Like anything else in law, it's a competing interest. We balance the individual right against society's need to govern.
Lawrence, you're reacting. I saw you out of the corner of my eye.
90 days to dispense justice? That's justice? That sounds like the Wild West. You're going to be able to go back through a record, investigate a case, make sure the lawyers did the right job, investigate all the mitigation, looked at his school records, their middle school records. I had a case I had to go back, fly to North Carolina to find out the client had an IQ of 58.
So what's the appropriate time? How much time should it take to review? Because that's one of the complaints about the death penalty.
Yeah.
Is that it takes too long.
It's expensive. You get appeals. You have a lot more rights if you get sentenced to death than you do in your case. If you don't, if you get life in prison without parole. To piggyback on what Lawrence is saying, I think a lot of people have come to the opinion that having the death penalty, even in any states in this country, puts us in league and makes us look like we're a little bit barbaric compared to a lot of modern functioning democracies, hey, why are we still doing this? And then it's from a very practical standpoint, it is super expensive for this country. And think about how long most people spend on death row. You can spend years, decades on death row before, your time ever comes to get the lethal injection, which is used.
And every day you're there, you're wondering if tomorrow is the day.
The only other countries that put people to death are like the Middle Eastern countries. Well, I think Saudi Arabia.
I also think that certain, especially like in Florida, states like Florida, I feel that verdicts with sentencing like that, or saying that hey, there's aggravating factors and things of that nature, and then they say no death penalty. That's an indicator of probably reasonable doubt.
Or something called residual doubt. We're going to talk about that. We got a lot more to debate here tonight. We're talking about the death penalty. Mark Sievers on Tuesday back in court. The jury has to make the ultimate decision once again.
Don't look good.
Yeah, it looks like it's both. Just what I don't need.
This is what you do need. Complete the application within minutes, and if approved, you may get the money you need as soon as tomorrow. Money's on the way with CashNet USA.
Best Fiends. Collect Howie and tons of other cute characters. Solve thousands of fun puzzles. Download Best Fiends for free today. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends.
Hi, you ever heard of Beachbody On Demand? Hold on one second. Here is your free membership. I'm Carl Deichler, the CEO of Beachbody, and I just sent a free membership to another customer, and I'm giving another 1 million memberships away free to anyone who texts me right now to join the largest fitness community in the world. The Beachbody On Demand fitness and nutrition app. It gives you instant access to all of our best-selling fitness programs like 21 Day Fix, Insanity, P90X, T25, and PiYo. Plus hundreds of other workouts and classes streaming right to your smartphone, tablet, or computer. We're now even on your TV, streaming on Roku, Amazon Fire, Google Chromecast, and Apple TV. There's no other fitness app that does all that. To get started, just text the word ALL to 303030, and I'll text you back with how to unlock your own free membership. That's all $8,000 of our fitness content, streaming to all your devices for free. Here's the catch. All I ask is please try our new app. Try streaming the workouts. Try customizing a nutrition plan to your goals. Or try making a meal with one of our hundreds of cooking videos. Then just let us know what you think using the feedback tab so we can keep making this the #1 fitness app in the world. I mean, look at these results. These are real people. No Photoshop, no tricks. These programs really work. And this is your one chance to try them for free to see how much weight you can lose and how fit you can get working out right at home. Now, I know it's 1 million free memberships I'm giving away, so I suppose there's no rush. But then again, this is a free offer to over $8,000 of fitness and nutrition solutions for free. So maybe don't wait. Just text ALL to 303030 right now, and I'll send you your own free membership.
Attention! The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has officially authorized new benefits that Medicare Advantage plans may include. To get the benefits you deserve, you can call the Medicare Coverage Helpline.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. If you're on Medicare, this is important information. I called the Medicare Coverage Helpline and they instantly looked up my coverage. In this one simple call, they offered to enroll me in a plan that includes rides to medical appointments, private home aides, doctors and nurses' visits by telephone, and even home-delivered meals. The plan also includes dental, vision, hearing, and prescription drug coverage, all at no additional cost.
Don't delay. Call to see if the new benefits are available in your area.
Call the number on your screen now. It's free.
Call 1-800-497-5903. That's 1-800-497-5903 now.
Mark Sievers and Jimmy Ray Rogers drove from Missouri through the night to murder Teresa Sievers, take nothing from the house, have no personal gain, and then return back to Missouri? That defies common sense. This was not a crime that was committed for no reason. Mr. Hunter said to you, ask yourself why. It is the question of this case. Why? Why is Teresa Sievers dead in the middle of her kitchen floor in a pool of blood when nothing is taken from the house? Because, as the text messages make clear, as Curtis Wayne Wright makes clear, this was a murder for which it was a murder for hire.
And Mark Sievers was convicted of being the man who hired the two murderers. Now, one of the murderers, Curtis Wright, took a deal, 25 years for him. He spilled the beans, cooperated, and helped get the other two defendants convicted. Jimmy Ray Rogers, convicted of second-degree murder, no longer facing the death penalty. His harshest penalty could be life in prison. Mark Sievers, the ringleader of them all, Tuesday, death penalty for him is what is at stake. So we've got our think tank back with us, and I want to put up some statistics for everyone here because you kind of blurred a lot of stuff out there off the top. I want to work through it. Let's start with what Lawrence was talking about. Let's take a look at prisoners on death row by race. 42% of them are black. 42% of them are white. 13% are Hispanic. There's another 3% in the other category of the more than 2,600 folks on death row. Is that discriminatory? And in what way?
Well, we don't know. Well, you're showing the percentage of who's on death row. We don't know how many cases have been death noticed that were black people.
What do you mean death notice? Explain.
Well, when the state decides who they're going to seek the death penalty against. They may have sought the death penalty against 100 black people and 30 white people, right? That's discriminatory. So
what you're saying is that,
statistic is the
from
end.
your perspective as a criminal defense attorney, right, is that prosecutors overwhelmingly seek death against black defendants more so than white?
Yes,
I'm not
going to say yes, they do. They do. It's clear. 42% of people on death row are black. When the population is not, we are absolutely minorities, and you have 42% of that minority in prison on death row. That disparate impact, like that is absolutely, there's a racial divide. Absolutely, it is it is not even. Absolutely, they seek more death penalty against black defendants.
Well, and the data, as I said, I'm not going to accuse prosecutors of doing it intentionally, but the data sort of says it. I mean, and what, 13% of the population is African American.
Michael Chinopoulos, do you think there's a discrepancy here in the way different races are treated when it comes to the death penalty?
I think there certainly can be, and it depends on the jurisdiction. Certainly, there is no place that can escape some sort of prejudice with regard to some group.
And you know what's interesting, in the cases we've covered here on Court TV, Henry Segura, African American, but Sigfredo Garcia, obviously Hispanic, Gran Amato white, Scott Nelson white. None of them got the death penalty, however. Do you think jurors see these types of defendants differently by race? Do you think a jury will look differently at someone who's white versus black versus Hispanic?
Well, just like what, Michael was just saying, it largely depends on the jurisdiction, sure. There are some jurisdictions that are going to have, let's say, a black defendant with a predominantly white population, and maybe that jury is just they're not going to necessarily identify with the defendant if you're trying to argue like self-defense or mitigating circumstances or something like that, as much as a black jury would identify with the same defendant. And I think that's just kind of common sense. There's some amount of xenophobia that goes into trying to pass judgment on somebody else who's coming from a completely different life than you are. I mean, when you have we've had clients where, they're a person of color who has experienced a completely different America than our white defendants have. And you have white jurors sitting there and they're like, I'm sorry, I just don't believe that there's any excuse for this type of behavior or any reason that this person could have turned to a life of crime, because I didn't experience that growing up. I didn't experience any prejudice against me, so I cannot now understand it or even consider it as a mitigating circumstance in this case.
So is that a big part of it, that you're talking about not just the race of the defendant, but the race of the folks in the jury box who are passing judgment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's well said by Ashley. And for example, just people who are minorities maybe a lot of times don't trust the police when somebody who comes from where I come from maybe trusts the police, right? So it absolutely depends on where you live, what state, what part of the state. You live in Mississippi versus New York City, the juries are going to be absolutely different. Well, if you live in upstate New York versus New York City, you're going to have more white people upstate that have money versus a diverse jury in the Bronx, right? I mean, absolutely.
Prejudice is real. It's going to happen. If you have a black defendant, know that race is going to be an issue. When I do have a trial, if I have a black defendant, I have to be cognizant. I have to be cognizant of who's going to be in that box. There has to be some people of color in that box because prejudice is real. Racism is real. We can sugarcoat it and all that other stuff, but it's real and it happens often. And we ask the question, one of the first questions we ask is, hey, if he's a defendant, are you going to feel some type of way because he's in the defendant chair? They say no, but we already know that that's not true. So we have black defendants, we have racist jurors, but we also have very prejudiced people, which is very different. Prejudice versus racism, very different. So we have people who have preconceived notions of these defendants, and that is what they are putting into trial. That is what they're dealing with when they're looking at these cases.
Let me do this. Let me put up something else on the screen. And again, the prisoners on death row, more than 2,600. How about men versus women? Take a look at this. Women make up less than 2% of death row inmates. There's only, out of the 2,600, 53 women on death row as of July 2019. Only 16 women have been executed since 1976 when the death penalty was reinstituted in this country. Michael, let me go to you. Why are there so few women on death row? I mean, less than 2%.
And Vinnie, I cannot in any way, shape, or form say that is an unfair application of the law based upon gender. I just honestly believe women just commit less violent crimes than men do.
All right.
That's just the way it is. They just commit fewer violent crimes.
Is the disparity between men and women on death row, is that a reason why it's unfair as well?
Well, I agree with Michael in that, statistically speaking, and we all know this, as criminal defense attorney and as former prosecutors, that women do get charged less frequently with violent crimes than men do. However, when you do have a woman who is charged with a violent crime or any type of murder, even if it's, poisoning or something that's not necessarily, going out and stabbing somebody, 100 times, I think it's a bigger hurdle for the jurors to get over to sentence a woman to death. And I think that is just simply a holdover from, our past as a country and how we look at women in society versus how we look at men.
Well, I mean, think about it, just a very easy example. You see a 30-year-old man who has sex with a 30-year-old teacher has sex with a 15-year-old, and if it's a male, everyone's like, oh my God, it's child molestation, fry him. Then you have a 30-year-old teacher who's a female having sex with a 14 or 15-year-old boy. Everyone's like, oh, wow, she's pretty. Yeah, it's rah-rah for the boy.
Yeah, lucky kid, right?
Lucky kid. Well, just no big deal. I mean, I think you kind of see that, and that's what happens in a lot of these cases, how we look at women versus how we're going to look at men.
Even in the world of murder, Eklund, you think jurors look at them differently?
I think they look at the facts. I just think that men have a propensity in the death, when you see these bigger cases, not every case gets the death penalty. Not every murder case gets it. It's how insane it is. It's how heinous the crimes are. And those heinous crimes, it's men that has the propensity to really commit these heinous crimes. So with that being said, they're going to be placed on death row more than women.
I think the death penalty is more, when it comes to race, that's where the discrimination really lies, as opposed to gender, in my opinion.
So it's not discrimination with gender, it's just men are worse than women.
Oh,
Is that what we're saying?
I agree completely.
I don't doubt that. I just think
that's what I'm hearing. Michael, is that not what I'm hearing? It's kind of what you said. Men are worse than women, and that's why there's 98% of the people on death row are men.
Notwithstanding the no really here, try this apple, Vinny, I got to say you're right. Men are worse than women.
All right. We've come to that conclusion. All right, folks, when we come back, social media today. I posted about the death penalty. What a reaction. We're going to go through your comments and run them through the think tank tonight. We'll be right back.
This is CourtTV.
The network designed for true crime.
Not justice! No peace!
He had to shoot to defend himself.
Something was not right here.
What does the jury need to find the truth?
It's a very stressful situation.
We are bringing you gavel-to-gavel coverage.
You'll see and hear all the evidence.
We heard 911 calls. I need help now!
The truth will always prevail.
This is CourtTV.
Your front row seat to justice.
This is an important message for anyone with Medicare or who expects to join soon.
This card I'm holding in my hand, it's an example of an all-in-one Medicare Advantage membership card.
The kind of Medicare coverage that comes with this simple little card can help you in so many ways.
The Medicare Advantage plan that I've got, it has paved the way for more independence. It's all-inclusive. They take care of all my pharmacy, they take care of all my medical, they take care of my doctor bills.
I actually don't even have to pay for a doctor visit, and that's fantastic.
If you're already on Original Medicare or you're about to become eligible, you may be familiar with Parts A and B.
Those cover your doctor visits and hospital care, things you'll also get in an all-in-one Medicare Advantage plan. But all-in-one Advantage card holders may get so much more.
I have only one card, and that card helps me with my vision costs, my dental costs, my pharmacy costs, my doctor costs.
Let's scroll a list of the potential benefits that can be covered with this single kind of card. And remember, in addition to all of this, you're still getting the Medicare, hospital, and medical benefits to which you're entitled. Oh, and are you sitting down? These plans may have a $0 monthly premium depending on where you live, no matter your health status or how much money you earn each year.
It is not trickery at all when you hear $0. I'm proof positive.
I love the $0 plans. That fits my pocketbook really well.
Compared to original Medicare recipients, people with one of these all-in-one Medicare plans had 23% fewer hospital stays and 33% fewer emergency room visits, while also receiving more physician office tests and services.
I love my Medicare Advantage plan. I wouldn't get away from it for anything in the world. It's perfect for me.
I have been able to go out and live a healthy lifestyle, been able to do all the things that I need health-wise, and because I'm able to do that, I feel good about myself, and it has saved me so much money.
One card, one company, one complete and convenient package of Medicare benefits to help you get well or stay well.
And for one low or no monthly plan premium. That's the kind of value you can't afford to ignore. So why not find out more right now? Here's how.
Call 800-525-7153 or visit thiscard800.com for free information about this incredible card with no obligation of any kind. This is free information that could give you more coverage for less money. Call 800-525-7153 or go online now to learn more.
When you weigh the evidence and you look at all these facts, ultimately, the one question you all have to ask yourselves: do you trust Curtis Wainwright? And would you feel different if a polygraph had been administered? Mark Sievers is innocent, and accordingly, you should return a verdict of not guilty for one count of first-degree murder and not guilty for one count of conspiracy to commit murder. Those photos, they're hard to look at. And they're hard to look at because that crime scene is anger, and it's violence, and it's rage, and it's hate. It is not murder for money.
But the jury found it was a contract killing, murder for money, and that's one of the aggravating factors down in Florida, pecuniary gain. Like if you're killing someone or hiring someone to kill someone so you can get some money, we're talking about $5 million is what prosecutors say the defendant, Mark Sievers, would have gotten. Would have. Not getting it now. Convicted murderer, so that's out the door. Anyhow, folks, today we're talking about the death penalty because we've had 4 death penalty cases just in the state of Florida since the relaunch of CourtTV. 4 convictions, 4 times the aggravating factors outweighed the mitigating factors, and 4 times the jury came back and said, life in prison. Well, Tuesday, it's Mark Sievers' turn. We'll be live inside the courtroom for that. Posted about the death penalty today. Incredible reaction on social media. Let's get right to it with our think tank. Becky writing, I am for the death penalty, especially in this case. He was the mastermind of this murder, and he thought he would never get caught. But with good investigation, the truth came out. He should have to look at a picture of the crime until the day he dies. The fact that he's the mastermind, Michael Chinopoulos down in Fort Myers, some people would look at this and say, well, he didn't actually kill her, and maybe he shouldn't get the ultimate punishment. But I say, but for him, none of this would have happened.
Yeah, and she expresses that with some emphasis, and I think she's right. I mean, the mastermind has to be the one that's held accountable. That's why we have the felony murder rule, and yeah, he's absolutely eligible for the death penalty here based upon that factor alone. He did it for money, and the jury believes that.
Now, let me ask you, there were 3 defendants in this murder, okay? And only one of them has the potential for the death penalty. One of them got 25 years. The one who had the hammer, who took her life, 25 years. Your thoughts about different penalties for the 3 people involved in this murder.
Well, it's a case of Marky Mark and the guilty bunch. I mean, just because he is and as Cynthia Ross hammered home in her rebuttal, look, he's the catalyst for this. He's the only reason that this crime occurred. He's the reason that these 2 men drove down from
So
Missouri.
if you're ranking who's the worst in this conspiracy,
Mark.
He's the worst? Agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was his idea.
I got them all to agree with me, folks. Did you hear that? They all agreed with me. All right. Kathleen writes, what is the point of the death penalty when so many prisoners sit on death row for many, many years? They might as well be put in solitary confinement with no possibility of parole. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the alternative, because I hear this from defense attorneys all the time. Life in prison is worse than being on death row. No way is it. No way is it more punishment.
Well, Kathleen, who's our viewer, knows what's up. So
Yeah.
that's obviously true.
Yes.
I mean, it's not just defense lawyers, it's the public and our viewers.
Another
that think
thing,
that.
too, think about the victims and the victim's family. So here's what happens is that when you have the death penalty, they have the trial, they have the conviction, okay. Then there's years in which he stays there and he lingers and the appeal upon appeal upon appeal. And the victim's family doesn't get to rest. They have to be there. They have to come to every hearing. They have to come to, they even have to sit and watch. You know what I'm saying? So there are years in which they can't get closure because the case is not closed. So I think that that's
Are you really arguing, Eklund, out of mercy for the victims, we get rid of the death penalty?
It is one particular argument, although it may not be a strong one. It's an argument nonetheless. But I'm just saying, like, you don't want to just leave an open wound. I think that also.
I understand there's more closure. If the closure of a death penalty case, it never closes. I mean, even when you are there on the day that the defendant's going to be executed, there's a phone in the room, and that phone can ring in any minute, and there's last-minute appeals. I've seen it a million times. I understand your point 100%, Eklund. Michelle, I've always believed in the death penalty, but I have to admit, after watching cases on Court TV and getting to know all the people involved in the cases, I often think, if I was on this jury, could I really vote for that person to die? It seems fair and just that people who commit heinous crimes should pay the maximum penalty, but if I was a juror, I think it might be hard to actually vote for someone to die. Could Michelle be qualified to sit on a death penalty case, or would she be bounced?
I absolutely think she could be qualified to sit on a death penalty case, because if she admits it, she could consider it, okay, and that she finds it within the realm of her ethics. But the Scott Nelson case is the best example of this. He asked for the death penalty. He asked to be put to death. And even that jury said, nope, we can't do it. We can't get there, all of us, even when the defendant is saying, hey, look, this is what I'm asking for. So I think Michelle's in good company with a lot of people.
Yeah. Let me just put this out there, because you might think, Vinnie, I haven't said what you thought. Here are my thoughts. I believe for every individual juror, it's an individual choice. I will never, ever, ever criticize a jury or a juror for sentencing someone to life. I can disagree with what I may have voted for, but I respect and understand that decision 10,000%, just so it's clear. All right, Ann May tonight. The death penalty does not work as a deterrent, so it's there simply to satisfy the need for an eye for an eye. I'm not for it, and I'm glad my state of Wisconsin agrees. Now, can I address this one first? Or I'll do it with the judge, Michael Chinopoulos. Michael, aren't there, in fact, 2 types of deterrence in our criminal justice system? There's general deterrence and specific deterrence, right? So doesn't the death penalty qualify for one of those?
And that's absolutely what I was going to say, Vinny. You must have been reading my mind from Atlanta. I mean, there may or may not be a generally deterrent factor from the death penalty. Somebody may not stop and say, I shouldn't do this because I'll be subject to death. But there is definitely a specific deterrent. Once that person is executed, they will not recommit that crime.
Bingo.
Well, let's just agree on one thing. Let's just be honest.
Okay.
Okay? The death penalty is not a deterrent. It is for pure retribution. You can't sit here and tell me that you don't think it's just. You can't tell me it's
specific deterrence.
Yeah, it's
specific deterrence.
It's retribution. That's what it is.
It's part retribution, absolutely. It's part retribution, part punishment, and specific deterrence to that criminal defendant,
Lawrence,
that killer.
You let him walk you into a logic box where you're not going to find your way out. A dead man can't commit more crimes.
Listen,
I mean, it is true.
Crime has gone down in the United States for the past 20 years, and so has the death penalty.
We'll get to that.
Okay?
We'll get to that.
Explain
we'll
that
get
one
to
to
that,
me,
Lawrence.
your logic.
We'll get to that in a second. Carla writing, I believe in the death penalty. The Sievers case is a tough one. The kids have already lost a parent, but at the same time, they lost their mother because of their father. An eye for an eye works great if you're absolutely sure the punishment is directed at the right person. I struggle with a lot of cases I see on Court TV and believing all juries got it right. And this is what you were talking about before. Residual doubt.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel that if you qualify to be on the jury, a death penalty jury, and if you convict this person and you say, hey, he is guilty, then automatically you can't go through all of the steps and then say, no, we don't. No, that means that there is reasonable doubt. If you cannot find him, if you cannot say, hey, let me pull the trigger, then that is reasonable doubt. You cannot be confirmed. You cannot say, hey, I'm going to be on this jury.
I would argue with you that it's not reasonable doubt, it's residual doubt. Reasonable doubt, like this big, residual doubt, like that big.
But you should put the same amount, that same amount of pressure during the trial. You should put that same amount of,
But it's a different legal standard.
It doesn't.
Residual and reasonable are different.
My issue is that it's reasonable in the sense that you let him go. You said that you can decide. You said that you can decide between the death penalty and not having the death penalty. You said that you don't have a problem with it. Then you said that there is aggravating factors. Then you said, oh no, we're not going to sentence him to death penalty. Right. It makes no sense. It's legally incongruent. I don't appreciate it. I
agree. I mean, yeah, if the act is so heinous and you found them guilty and then the aggravating factors outweigh the mitigation, but yet you're not going to sentence to death, something's going on.
Then that means you have some doubt.
Yeah,
you have doubt.
All right, Allison, Vinnie. I don't believe in the death penalty for the simple fact that no one on this earth has a right to choose your death. Also, choosing for someone to die is something that the person has to live with for the rest of their life. Life in prison is a good enough punishment for criminals. This is a point I made last night. I'm going to make it again tonight, okay? Jurors are not responsible for the death of criminals who have been sentenced to death, okay? The people responsible are the killers. The jurors are simply following the law and their civic obligations. They are honest with the judge when they are questioned. They are honest with the lawyers during voir dire. Then they follow the law of their state. They apply the facts to the law. They come to a verdict. They are not responsible. They should never, ever, ever carry that burden with them. Lawrence is shaking his head.
Because that's only what attorneys say. The reality is, at the end of the day, these jurors are not attorneys. They go home. Right. They do live with this. Mm-hmm. They do live with this. That's the reality of it. You know.
All right. Great job, folks. We got more for you, but I got some breaking news tonight. Federal prosecutors have indicted singer R. Kelly again. New charges today. They appear to be related to his 1994 marriage to a teenager. Prosecutors say he was scheming with other people to pay for fraudulent documents for someone identified only as Jane Doe on August 30th, 1994. Then just one day later, you may recall, R. Kelly married a 15-year-old R&B singer named Aaliyah. The marriage was later annulled. These charges are added to the charges he's already facing for racketeering, kidnapping, forced labor, and sexual exploitation. Of course, we're tracking all of his cases here on Court TV. We'll be right back.
Attention! The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has officially authorized new benefits that Medicare Advantage plans may include. To get the benefits you deserve, you can call the Medicare Coverage Helpline.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. If you're on Medicare, this is important information. I called the Medicare Coverage Helpline and they instantly looked up my coverage. In this one simple call, they offered to enroll me in a plan that includes rides to medical appointments, private home aides, doctors and nurses' visits by telephone, and even home-delivered meals. The plan also includes dental, vision, hearing, and prescription drug coverage, all at no additional cost.
Don't delay. Call to see if the new benefits are available in your area.
Call the number on your screen now. It's free.
Call 1-800-497-5903. That's 1-800-497-5903 now.
We got one of those new purple mattresses, and it is amazing. You have to try it.
You didn't need to.
Shh. Just lie down.
Oh, this doesn't feel like memory foam.
No.
This feels amazing.
Right?
What is it?
Actually, it's called Purple, and it's nothing like memory foam. It's a totally unique gel grid technology, meticulously designed to cradle and support the human body. It sleeps cool, it's motion isolating, and honestly, I love it more than 2 of my 3 children.
Cool.
We loved our Purple so much, we got one for the guest bedroom. That way, when my in-laws come, they can stay in my bed and I can come.
Okay, feel that? Adapts instantly.
Honey!
Oh, hey, honey. Yeah, so just showing the guys the new purple mattress.
Sleep great through the holidays on the only mattress with the purple grid and get a free premium gift bundle. Get yours today at purple.com/TV.
When you're looking for answers, it's good to have help. Because the right information at the right time may make all the difference. At Humana, we know that's especially true when you're looking for a Medicare supplement insurance plan. That's why we're offering 7 things every Medicare supplement should have. It's yours free, just for calling the number on your screen. And when you call, a knowledgeable licensed agent producer can answer any questions you have and help you choose the plan that's right for you. The call is free and there's no obligation. You see, Medicare covers only about 80% of your Part B medical expenses. The rest is up to you. That's why so many people purchase Medicare supplement insurance plans like those offered by Humana. They're designed to help you save money and pay some of the costs Medicare doesn't. Depending on the Medicare supplement plan you select, you could have no deductibles or copayments for doctor visits, hospital stays, emergency care, and more. You can keep the doctors you have now, ones you know and trust, with no referrals needed. Plus, you can get medical care anywhere in the country, even when you're traveling. With Humana, you get a competitive monthly premium and personalized service from a healthcare partner working to make healthcare simpler and easier for you. You can choose from a wide range of standardized plans. Each one is designed to work seamlessly with Medicare and help save you money. So how do you find the plan that's right for you? One that fits your needs and your budget. Call Humana now at the number on your screen for this free guide. It's just one of the ways that Humana is making healthcare simpler. And when you call, a knowledgeable licensed agent producer can answer any questions you have and help you choose the plan that's right for you. The call is free and there's no obligation. You know Medicare won't cover all your medical costs, so call now and see why a Medicare supplement plan from a company like Humana just might be the answer.
Spirited debate tonight. Our think tank locked and loaded. I told you they were. And we're talking about the death penalty. And that's because Tuesday, Mark Sievers will be back in court. And it'll be life or death for Sievers, already now convicted of the murder of his wife and the mother of his 2 daughters. So I want to put up on the screen another statistic that we researched today. And this is the number of executions since the death penalty was reinstituted in 1976. You go to 1987, 25, 1999, 98, then 2009 down to 52, and now here in 2019 we're down to just 20. That graph is extremely clear in what the pattern is and where we are going, and we've seen it ourselves here on Court TV. We've gone through it. Let's go down to Michael Chinopoulos. Michael, I know you spoke a little bit about this in the beginning of the program. But that is so drastic, those numbers. It's like we peaked around 1999, and it's been a steady downward slope since. Do you think we'll ever get to the point where people just say no more death penalty in this country?
You know, I think that's possible, Vinny, and it depends, again, on the jurisdiction or the part of the country that you're talking about. We have such different cultural norms in different parts of the country. I think the downward trend is reflective of the way society feels right now. That's not to say that won't change, and that's why leaving the death penalty where it is and leaving it in the hands of capable, qualified jurors does reflect the conscience of the community from which those jurors hail.
All right, let me ask you another question about the death penalty to my criminal defense attorneys. Sometimes, in some states, it's a bargaining tool. Someone gets indicted, charged with the death penalty, and the obvious deal is, all right, we'll take death off. You plead guilty to what you did. Your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, at plea negotiations, pretty much in anything, are a little. I think when we explain these to people that aren't attorneys, you know, they listen to them and they watch shows like Making a Murderer and things like that, and they say, oh man, this bargaining chip that you use, you know, you don't always get a person who absolutely believes that they're guilty taking a plea and saying, yes, I'm guilty in court, who actually did this. And that's just part of the way our criminal justice system works. And I think it's a necessary evil, and I think if we didn't have it, the whole thing
If
would
we didn't
fall
have
apart.
it, there'd be no incentive for any
Right.
murder defendant to ever plead guilty.
Right.
Well, I mean, if you had a choice between life versus life without parole, that's also a bargaining chip, right? I may get life, which may be 15 or 30 years in some
Yeah,
states.
but as a prosecutor, I don't think I want murderers getting parole.
Right. So you could say, right, but that's possible. I understand where you're coming from, but life in some states may be 30 years without parole. Life without parole is life without parole. I mean, I've had a heinous case a couple years ago where I went to the district attorney's office, the murder of 2 young people, and I was able to negotiate away the death penalty in exchange for a life without parole sentence.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
all
I
right, so
just- I
that's
understand
that's
that.
one purpose and use of the death penalty, which I think is pretty effective in getting murderers to actually admit what they did and not put the victim's family through everything. And there is some finality, and it's over, and they're locked up forever. I want to put up another stat here, and Lawrence, I know you were talking about this. Everyone always talks about this. Probably the greatest argument of all against the death penalty, which are death row exonerations. 160 plus people have been released from death row since 1973 with evidence of their innocence. Not evidence that, hey, they didn't have enough evidence to prove the case, but actual evidence of innocence. You're talking about exoneration. They did not do it. Not it couldn't be proven. They actually did not do it. From 1973 to 1999, there was an average of 3 exonerations per year. That number then bumped up. You look from 2000 to 2011 to an average of 5 per year, and that's really DNA. And that's DNA. So the fact that DNA is now used at trial, do you think the number of these exonerations is going to virtually disappear?
No,
Because
I mean-
the DNA isn't an after the fact. It's not like we're going back to cases where there were convictions before DNA was even able to be tested. Now it's being tested before the trial.
I mean, maybe that it's going to go down because obviously a lot of the people who are exonerated are based on like faulty eyewitness identifications. They used to have hair evidence, which is junk science. So yeah, it's probably going to go down. But I'm kind of offended by, and maybe your guest Michael could talk about it. Talk about deterrence. If 160 people have been exonerated from death row, you know, it's finality.
Why do you challenge him when I'm at the end of the show and I'm out of time, Lawrence? Michael, I'll answer for you that, well, we'll answer after the show. Anyhow, folks, what a great job. Michael Chidopoulos, appreciate your time. Great to have you back on the show. Ashley McMahan, Lawrence Zimmerman, and Eklund Mercy, as always.